currently. It was December 24th in the year 1923 that our nation's 30th president, Calvin Coolidge, touches a button and lights up the first national Christmas tree to grace the White House grounds. Not only was this the first White House community Christmas tree, but it was the first to be decorated with electric lights, a strand of 2,500 red, white, and green bulbs. The balsam fir came from Coolidge's home state of Vermont and stood 48 feet tall. Several musical groups performed at the tree lighting ceremony, including the Epiphany Church Choir and the U.S. Marine Band. Later that evening, President Calvin Coolidge and First Lady Grace were treated to carols sung by members of Washington, D.C.'s First Congressional Church. According to the White House Historical Association, President Benjamin Harrison, our nation's 23rd president, was the first president to set up an indoor Christmas tree for his family and visitors to enjoy in 1889. The tree was decorated with ornaments and candles. In 1929, First Lady Lou Henry Hoover oversaw what would become an annual tradition of decorating the indoor White House tree. Since then, each First Lady's duties have included the trimming of the official White House tree. Coolidge's inauguration of the first outdoor national Christmas tree initiated a tradition that has been repeated with every administration. In 1981, our nation's 40th president, Ronald Reagan, began another custom by authorizing the first official White House ornament, copies of which were made available for purchase. On December 24th in the year 1952, the McCarran-Walter Act takes effect and revises U.S. immigration laws. The law was hailed by supporters as a necessary step in preventing alleged communist subversion in our nation, while opponents decried the legislation as being xenophobic and discriminatory. The act was named for Senator Pat McCarran, a Democrat from Nevada, and Representative Francis Walter, a Democrat from Pennsylvania. The act did relatively little to alter the quota system for immigration into the United States that had been established in the Immigration Act of 1924. The skewed nature of the quota was readily apparent. Immigrants from Great Britain, Ireland, and Germany were allotted 2/3 of the 154,657 spots available each year. However, the act did specifically remove previously established racial barriers that had acted to exclude immigrants from nations such as Japan and China. These countries were now assigned very small quotas. The changes that were of more concern for many critics centered on the Act's provisions of much more strenuous screening of potential immigrants. It banned admission to anyone declared a subversive by the Attorney General and indicated that members of communist and communist front organizations were subject to deportation. In defending the act, Senator McCarran declared, "If this oasis of the world should be overrun, perverted, contaminated, or destroyed, then the last flickering light of humanity will be extinguished." President Harry S. Truman, our nation's 33rd president, took a very different view, calling the legislation un-American and inhumane. When the bill passed in June of 1952, Truman vetoed the bill. Congress overrode his veto, and the act took effect in December. The McCarran-Walter Act set America's immigration standards until new legislation was passed in 1965. It was December 24th in the year 1979 that the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan under the pretext of upholding the Soviet-Afghan Friendship Treaty of 1978. As midnight approached, the Soviets organized a massive military airlift into Kabul, involving an estimated 280 transport aircraft and 3 divisions of almost 8,500 men each. Within a few days, the Soviets had secured Kabul, deploying a special assault unit against Tajberg Palace. Elements of the Afghan army, loyal to Hafizullah Amin, put up a fierce but brief resistance. On December 27th, Babrak Kamal, exiled leader of the Parcham faction of the Marxist People Democratic Party of Afghanistan, was installed as Afghanistan's new head of government, and Soviet ground forces entered Afghanistan from the north. The Soviets, however, were met with fierce resistance when they ventured out of their strongholds into the countryside. Resistance fighters called Mujahideen saw the Christian or atheist Soviets controlling Afghanistan as a defilement of Islam, as well as of their traditional culture. The Mujahideen employed guerrilla tactics against the Soviets. They would attack or raid quickly, then disappear into the mountains, causing great destruction without pitched battles. The fighters used whatever weapons they could grab from the Soviets or were given by the United States. The tide of the war turned with the 1987 introduction of the U.S. shoulder-launched anti-aircraft missiles. The Stingers allowed the Mujahideen to shoot down Soviet planes and helicopters on a regular basis. New Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev decided it was time to get out. Demoralized and with no victory in sight, Soviet forces started withdrawing in 1988. The last Soviet soldier crossed back across the border on February 15th in 1989. It was the first Soviet military expedition beyond the Eastern Bloc since World War II and marked the end of a period of improving relations known as détente in the Cold War. Subsequently, the SALT II arms treaty was shelved and the U.S. began to rearm. The long-term impact of the invasion and subsequent war was profound. First, the Soviets never recovered from the public relations and financial losses, which significantly contributed to the fall of the Soviet Empire in 1991. Second, the war created a breeding ground for terrorism and the rise of Osama bin Laden. We remember all souls who continued their eternity during this conflict. Historic information, the roles, and documented on this audio file can be verified on History.com.